I recently picked up an old Spectrum. It was a Spectrum Plus. I found it on Facebook, so I went to collect it. The Spectrum itself came in a box. In that box there were some tapes and some books and this little printer as well. It's a small printer. It, I believe, came out at the same time around when the ZX81 was out, and this printer works with that device. It uses a piece of paper that's been infused with aluminium on it. Inside the printer there is a small piece of metal. It's called a stylus. That stylus is attached to a band. One end of the stylus runs along a strip of metal that has a current going through it, and the other end of the stylus scrapes along the paper. When the current's applied to the stylus, it makes a mark on the paper. When I got this printer, I tried to do a few test prints. I connected it up to the Spectrum, and I just couldn't get anything out of it at all. The printer was making noises. It was going through the actions. It was trying to print. It was kicking out line feeds, but I was getting no marks at all on the actual printer itself. So I thought I'd have a look inside it. I opened it up, fairly easy to get inside, and inside I found that the band that the stylus is attached to had completely disintegrated. So although the gears were turning, the styluses weren't moving because they were attached to this band that was in pieces. And doing a bit of reading on the internet, it seems to be a fairly common fault, and the majority of these printers today are in this state, in a non-working fashion, or the majority of them with their bands all perished. I've been inside this printer before. That white wire there, that's connected to the top part of the printer. So when you do open this up, make sure that you're looking for that and you disconnect it. Did a bit of research and I found someone on YouTube that had exactly this issue. He had a big box of these things all broken. So I messaged that person and he said he was aware of someone that was actually 3D printing replacement bands for them. So as well as 3D printing with a rigid plastic, you can also 3D print with a flexible plastic, and that's what this person was doing. So I thought I'd give it a go, and I ordered one. So I've been in the printer before, and as I mentioned, I found that the band in about several different pieces. That's what's in the bag now. Here we go. So that yellow piece of whatever it is the old perished band, and you can see just how easily that teared. That piece of metal there is the stylus. So you need to preserve those if you have them from your band, because they're not included in the 3D printed part. I also found this piece of plastic that had come from where one of the screws attached to the case. I'm not sure if I broke this or it had been broken previously, but if you do go into it, the plastics can be a bit brittle, so just be careful when you're tightening and loosening the screws. This is the rubber band that got delivered. So it is 3D printed using a flexible filament. You can just see there that there's two holes where the pins go for the stylus. In the original band, there was a pin attached to the band that was actually made of the same material of the band. But in this design, there's just two holes, and you need to create your own pins for this. As well as the band, there was two pieces of paper with instructions on it. They're fairly good, mainly telling you to download the service manual for the printer and read that. Again, that helped, but my biggest issue was trying to work out, because my band is in so many different pieces, I didn't know which way the styluses are meant to be orientated. They are slightly different. One leg is higher than the other leg, and also slightly longer than the other leg. So should the longer leg go on the inside? Should it go on the outside? As there's two styluses, should they be facing each other, or should they be facing the same way? So that was my biggest headache, was just trying to work out the orientation of the styluses. As I mentioned, there's no pin supplied, so you've got to create one. The documentation suggests things like piano wire or solder. So I had solder, so that's what I went for initially. Started off with a very thin piece of solder, and it soon became very clear that the thin piece of solder was too thin. It easily fit through the hole on both the stylus and the band itself, but there was just too much movement on the stylus. The stylus itself needs to be fairly rigid once you attach it. There shouldn't be too much movement at all. So what I found that worked best for me was a piece of solder that I was just able to push through the hole on the band. As soon as I'd moved to that thickness of solder, then it started working fine. So cut a piece of solder off, shoved it through the hole, put the stylus on, put the very, very small end cap on, and then I just trimmed the solder down. You can see in this shot, this is where I'm using the thicker piece of solder. So I'm just trying to put the stylus on, and it's only just able to fit over the solder. So that's what worked best for me. It's saying find a piece of solder that just fits through the hole and just fits through the hole on the stylus as well. When you're putting the stylus on, if you look at the stylus, you'll see that there's one leg that's higher than the other, and that leg also has a shorter end piece. Now the leg that's higher needs to go on the inside of the band. So you've got the teeth of the band are on the inside, because they're what attached to the cogs, and the leg with the short end bit and the higher leg goes on the inside, and the leg that pretty much sits in line with the band and has the longer end piece goes on the outside. So I took some pictures just so you could see a little bit more clear. There's one of the styluses. You've got the long piece on the outside of the band, and the one with the sort of the shorter foot on the inside. And I'm going on about this quite a bit, but saying this was my biggest problem, is just working out the orientation of the styluses. And the styluses are facing each other. So once you've done that, put the band back on the cogs. Don't worry if it's a little bit loose, the cogs also sit in two holes in the top part of the printer, and that tightens it all up. Once it looks good, make sure that the band is spinning freely around the cogs and everything looks okay, and then you can start to reassemble. When you put the lid on, things to be careful about are there is a spade connector near where the connector connects to the Spectrum itself, which is a ground wire, so make sure that's still connected. It was a little bit loose on mine. And also there is a white lead with a spade connector that goes to the top part of the printer. Just creating a little gap so I can see the white cable and the spade end. I'm just going to grab some pliers and attach that to the top part of the printer. Now what I didn't notice at this point, although the camera does catch it, is that I did attach it, but then I moved the lid and the white cable actually comes off. So you can see just about now when I put this down, that cable is not connected. So just make sure it's connected, because if it isn't, it won't do any harm, it just won't print because there's no current going to the stylus. Top goes on fairly easy, just a bit of manipulation on the button that you press to do some line feeds, and then it's secured back down with the 4 screws that you took off when you removed the top cover. Just putting the paper back onto the back of the printer. Just checking the connector, making sure it's okay, no damage. Don't forget, like anything that you plug into the Spectrum on the edge connector, make sure the Spectrum is powered off before you plug it in. This Spectrum has been converted for composite out, so that's what the yellow cable is there, and then just add in the power supply as well. To test it, I did a very simple program using the lprint command to print to the printer. In speech marks what I actually wanted it to say, and then line 20 go to 10. So it's going to print hello world line after line until you do a break. Get rid of whatever that is. So hit run, press enter, and off it goes. Very happy with the result. Not sure if that's as good a quality as what it ever is going to get. You can see that the W on World is not as clear, but you know, I don't have a reference point. I don't know if that's just the quality of the printer, or maybe a little bit more manipulation of the styluses. I could improve in the quality, but from where I came from, which was a non-working printer, I was very, very happy. I think the stylus kit cost me about £12, so not a huge investment to get one of these working. Here I've just typed in a little program to draw some concentric circles on the screen. And in this case, I'm using the copy command to copy what's on the screen to the printer. So it's kicking out a load of space, and then it will get to the lines which are at the bottom of the screen, and it prints those out on the printer itself. So I hope the video has been useful. Thank you for watching, and if you do attempt this repair, then best of luck. It is definitely possible, a little bit fiddly, but not too challenging. Thank you.